Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Yasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Jaya Yasodhanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jabihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Munatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, somehow or the other, my computer is still thinking what it wants to do next. My computer is thinking, which is not a good sign.
You want to grab your book?
Yeah, well, I can find it here. Tough. Material energy. You down. If anything, this is something of don't trust Maya, even for a second. 7, 5, 16. Okay, so now I have it. So today's verse is verse number 16. Today's text number 16. Prahlad Maharaj, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu. Aniyatam are vetram asmakam ayasaskara kalangarasya durbudes chaturto syodito damaha aniyatam are vetram asmakam ayasakaraha kulan garasya durbudes chaturto asyodito damaha. Let's try that one more time. Aniyatam are vetram asmakam ayasaskaraha kulangarasya durbudhes chatortat asodito damaha. One more time. Aniyatam are vetram asmakam ayasaskaraha kalangarasya durbudhes chaturto asyodito. Okay, it doesn't look like that's going to work. Please, anybody wants to recite the verse whilst I try to get my computer working? It seems like it froze.
Aniyatam are vetram asmakam ayashaskaraha kulangarasya durbutesh chaturto shodito namaha.
Anyone else? Wow. Things happen. Okay, we'll have to do it from here then. Aniyatam, let it be brought. Are, vetram, the stick. Asmakam, of us. Ayasaskaraha, who is bringing defamation. Kula angarasya, of he who is like a cinder in the dynasty. Durbudhe, having bad intelligence. Chaturta, the fourth. Asya, for him. Uditaha, declared. Damaha, punishment, the stick. Augmentum ad baculum. So translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Wow. Okay, I think that's not going to work, but nevertheless. Oh, please bring me a stick. This Prahlad is damaging our name and fame. Because of his bad intelligence, he has become like a cinder in the dynasty of the demons. Now he needs to be treated by the fourth of the four kinds of political diplomacy. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In political affairs, when a person disobediently agitates against the government, four principles are used to suppress him. legal orders, pacification, the offer of a post, or finally, weapons. When there are no other arguments, he is punished. In logic, this is called augmentum ad baculum. When the two seminal brahmanas, Sanda and Amarka, failed to extract from Prahlad Maharaj the cause for his having opinions different from those of his father, they called for the stick with which to chastise him to satisfy their master Hiranyakashipu. Because Prahlad had become a devotee, they considered him to be contaminated by bad intelligence and to be the worst descendant in the family of demons. As it is said, where ignorance is bliss, it is folly to be wise. In a society or family in which everyone is a demon, for someone to become a Vaishnav is certainly folly. Thus Prahlad Maharaj was charged with bad intelligence because he was among demons, including his teachers, who were supposedly Brahmanas. The members of our Krishna consciousness movement are in a position similar to that of Prahlad Maharaj. All over the world, 99% of the people are godless demons. And therefore, our preaching of Krishna consciousness, following in the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj, is always hampered by many impediments. Because of their fault of being devotees, the American boys who have sacrificed everything for preaching Krishna consciousness are charged with being members of the CIA. Moreover, the seminal Brahmanas in India Brahmana only if born in a Brahmana that one becomes a Brahmana by qualification. Because we are training Europeans and Americans to become qualified and are awarding them Brahmanical status, we are being charged with destroying the Hindu religion. Nonetheless, confronting all kinds of difficulties, we must spread Krishna consciousness. We must spread the Krishna consciousness movement with great determination, like that of Prahlad Maharaj, in spite of being the son of the demon Hiranyakashipu. Prahlad never feared the chastisements of the seminal Brahmana sons of a demoniac father. Wow. Om Jnanatimanandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshumitam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurube Namaha. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhureva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavabhyo namo namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhar Shivasti Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, yeah, just another amazing verse in the Bhagavatam. There's many thousands of these types of powerful verses that enlighten us on who we are, what we're meant to do, and what is the goal of this human form of life. So we can see in this particular verse, Prahlad Maharaj, great pure devotee of the Lord. He's one of the Mahajans. And somehow, ironically, he is, of course, with good reason, born in a family of demons. And of course, his father, demon, that he is punishing Prahlad for his devotional qualities. Of course, he is very envious of Prahlad, envious of Lord Vishnu, of course. That was his big pain point. And we see that Prahlad is being tortured in so many ways. So in this particular verse, it seems like these two seminal brahmanas, Sanda and Amarka, they have, of course, been summoned already by Hiranyakashipu. What are you teaching this boy? Where did he learn all of these things? And they're also at the wood's end. So it seems like they've already tried different strategies, different methodologies to try to educate Prahlad Maharaj in the demoniac mentality. And in this particular verse, it seems like they've exhausted all three of the 4 kinds of political diplomacy that is used in the material world. And so now they're having to use the last method of political diplomacy. So the technical terms, of course, Prabhupada gives the 4 English translations: legal orders, so we can understand it better in the material world, legal orders, pacification, the offer of a post, and finally weapons. So of course we see that in the world today, these things are so true. Practically every place in the world, this 4 kinds of political diplomacy are going on. And it seems like until recently, even America is now using this so-called 4th kind of diplomacy. In fact, now it's not even political diplomacy. Now it's just complete chaos. The constitution seems to be being questioned, not even questioned, just overlooked. But we see these kinds of things are going on around the world. So the 4th kind, of course, is weapons. According to the Vedas, there's 4 technical terms called the Chatur Upaya. Number 1 is called Sama. So legal orders, or one can say persuasion. Sometimes you can say peaceful negotiation. And then there's the 2nd type, which is dana, concessions, gifts, strategic offerings. The 3rd type is division, strategy, revealing the truth, Bheda. And the 4th type is called danda, force, punishment, or military action. So I wanted to just start by maybe let's get a few examples given in the Bhagavatam of these different types of diplomacy that's used in the Bhagavatam. So as far as the first one, Sama, where there's just, peaceful negotiation, there's some sort of persuasion. So some examples from the Bhagavatam is, of course, this very situation of Prahlad Maharaj. Of course, initially he was, being questioned by his father. So we, see how Hiranyakashipu, he was asking Prahlad Maharaj, what have you learned? And Prahlad Maharaj, calmly responded what he has learned. He has learned explaining the omnipotence, omnipresence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he also explained to his father very calmly the futility of demoniac pride. So, we see that Prahlad Maharaj, spoke to his father in a very calm way, explaining to him the facts of life and how this, demoniac agenda is a futile attempt that the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. So, he was using moral reasoning, he was using calm speech, despite, the hostile environment he was in. Of course, his father tried to kill him or gave instructions for him to be killed, so many different ways. Still, Prahlad Maharaj had maintained his composure, and we've just been reading so many verses now where Prahlad Maharaj was explaining, this idea of friend and enemy is, a completely material conception. And how, on the spiritual platform, there's no ideas of friend and enemies. As soon as we have this material conception, that this, idea comes to mind. So, being in such a difficult situation, even Prahlad Maharaj, was not seeing his father as enemy. So imagine, what a pure devotee Prahlad Maharaj is. Another example of this, peaceful negotiation, persuasion, is Manu persuading the demigods and demons to cooperate during the churning of the milk ocean. So if you remember that pastime, where the milk ocean needed to be churned, and everybody had to gather together to churn the ocean to obtain the Amrita. And so in that example, the demigods and demons, even though they completely opposed to each other, hate each other, still he was, explaining to them that in this unique set of circumstances, one has to cooperate. So, he was saying, persuading them, please set aside temporarily all your animosity and, let's work together for churning the ocean to get this Amrita. Another third example is the demigods conciliatory prayers to Lord Vishnu against Vitrasura. So we just, had in the previous canto learned in depth about Vitrasura, this big demon again. And the Devas, of course, were suffering under Vitrasura's oppression. But we see that, the demigods, they had to humbly approach Lord Vishnu, acknowledge Lord Vishnu's supremacy, and, pray for protection from them. Ultimately, with the goal of defeating Vitrasura. So we see that, whenever there's diplomacy invoked, one immediately thinks about humility, respect, and seeking a higher authority's guidance. The fourth example in this Sama category of persuasion, peaceful negotiation is Vidura giving moral counsel to Dhritarashtra. So if we remember in the Mahabharata, so, Vidura at some point was also giving guidance to Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, and explaining to Dhritarashtra that, the Duryodhana, your son's ambitions, is a danger to the whole kingdom. So he tries to use reason, logic, ethical principles, and he also, includes historical precedents to persuade Dhritarashtra. Okay, looks like cow is out. Then the second category is, giving, offering concessions, giving gifts, some sort of offering like that, which is called dana. And we see examples given in the Bhagavatam of this type of diplomacy is where Krishna approaches Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra that in order to avoid the war, he is attempting to negotiate with them initially before the war started, that why don't, you both consider at least giving the Pandavas 5 villages, 1 for each brother to rule. And in this way, we can avoid this war for the kingdom and, prevent so much of bloodshed. So we remember from that past time that, even though Krishna went with the plea to Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, what was their response? Their response was, I will not even give as much land so that they could even drive a pin into the ground. So this is how determined they were. So nevertheless, attempts were made, to resolve the conflict, but still Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana were determined. Another example of dana, this giving, offering, trying to find some concession, is Bali Maharaj offering everything to Vamanadev. So we'll see in the next canto this entire pastime of Bali Maharaj and Vamanadev, that Vamanadev, as a dwarf, had requested, as a Brahmana, had requested 3 steps of land. And in order to fulfill that request from a Brahmana, Bali Maharaj, he said, sure, I'm giving you 3 steps of land. And so, of course, we understand from that pastime that Vamanadev, with his first 2 steps, he had covered all earthly and heavenly realms. And, there was nowhere else to place his 3rd step. And of course, Bali Maharaj had offered his own head, surrendering himself completely to the Supreme Lord in this way. The 3rd example is Maharaj Ambarish giving hospitality and forgiveness to Durvasa Muni. So, of course, Durvasa Muni in that pastime had arrived in a very, very angry mood, threatening Ambarish Maharaj. And, Ambarish Maharaj's mood was very hospitable. He gave, personal attention to Durvasa. and even begged for forgiveness. So he was definitely pacifying Durvasa Muni, even though it was. Fourth example is Prithu offering settlements to Mother Earth. So in that case, Mother Earth, had fled because of human mismanagement. Prithu promised that he will rule very justly, and he'll provide balance in the universe again. So in this way, Earth was able to return. So the third example is Beda, where one uses division, strategy, truth, and weakening unity as a strategy of diplomacy. And 4 examples of that is we see, of course, even in this pastime of Vamanadev, where he was able to break the unity between Sukracharya, the spiritual master of Bali Maharaj. So we see, of course, in that example, Sukracharya, the spiritual master of Bali, had told Bali not to give any land to Vamanadev, because this is, a whole show that this is actually Vishnu disguised. But still, Bali Maharaj, of course, being a devotee of the Lord, he was defied, even his spiritual master in that regards. And, still went ahead and gave Vamanadev those 3 steps of land. So, of course, we see from Bali's point of view, he was able to give Vamanadev that land as he had promised, refused to break his vow to Vamanadev. So even though his spiritual master is telling him, don't do it, still he went ahead and did it. So another example is Lord Vishnu creating confusion among the demon ranks. So when the battle between the Asuras and the demigods were going on, Lord Vishnu was able to infiltrate and manipulate the demons, so that the demons actually began doubting each other. So we see different strategies being used by Lord Vishnu there. Third example, Narad Muni revealing the truth to King Prachina Barhi. So we see, in that pastime, which we covered in the 4th canto, Narad Muni was using the allegory of King Puranjan, and using that allegory of King Puranjan, the futility of fruitive desires. And so in this way, he was able to use that allegory, analogy for that matter, to break the king's attachment to his materialistic authority. And the 4th one is Krishna exposing Pundaraka's false identity. The 10th canto, Pundaraka claims to be Vasudev and challenges Krishna. Krishna exposes the deception, disbanding Pundaraka's supporters. The 4th example of Danda, which is force, punishment, or military action. Again, one example one can cite now is, this pastime with Prahlad Maharaj, but more specifically Hiranyakashipu's end, and Nishingadev killing Hiranyakashipu. So of course, all types of diplomacy was used to Hiranyakashipu, is that right to say, back to his senses? But anyway, the idea was, Hiranyakashipu was so demoniac that, nothing was going to stop him. He was just terrorizing everybody. And, once he had escalated his behavior towards Prahlad Maharaj, we see, Hiranyakashipu had appeared, Lord Nishingadev had appeared on the scene and killed Hiranyakashipu. So force punishment. Lord Varaha, he killed, of course, his brother, Hiranyaksha. That's what made also Hiranyakashipu very, very upset. We see another example of force being used is Krishna's killing Kamsa. So, of course, again, Kamsa was, such a demoniac person that terrorizing the residents of Vrindavan, wanting to kill the 8th child so desperately, just creating so much of fear. Ultimately, the 4th process had to be used, killing of Kamsa. And then also maybe another example of this force is Indra using force to kill Vitrasura, thereby restoring peace in the heavenly planets. So, yeah, we see it's, in these days, in society today, this idea of using force, is frowned upon. And, it's been going on like that for decades now. One example I was thinking of was, when I was growing up, going to school, we used to have corporal punishment. I think that's the sanitized term in schools. And, I think most of us can remember that. At least in South Africa, it was, very, very relevant, prevalent. But I think, most parts of the world, it was there, some sort of discipline. But the idea is that, that kind of discipline using the stick, it can be successful. And, I think if I just look at my own life, I'm grateful for all those persons, school teachers, parents, family members, everybody that had disciplined me. And shown me a proper path of living in the material world. Of course, there was lacking still of understanding who is Krishna and what is the goal of life. But still, just on growing up as a human being, and having some sort of nice qualities. Very, very grateful for having the stick. So of course, we got caned in school when we didn't behave properly or didn't do our homework. And at home, we grew up with extended family around. So actually, my father, of course, my parents were separated. So my father never disciplined us. My mother, of course, she did the needful to discipline us. And because we grew up in an extended household where my uncles and aunts all lived together, they also had the opportunity for instilling discipline in all of us, despite not being, our parents, but, we definitely respected elders. So we see that if this punishment is, done without envy, without malice, then some effect can be there. But in this case of Prahlad Maharaj, we're dealing with a pure devotee of the Lord, and the setting is definitely very unusual with Prahlad Maharaj being a pure devotee of the Lord, and having to be surrounded by so many demons. So of course in the purport, Prabhupada is giving the analogy that this Krishna consciousness movement is in such a situation in the world today where 99% of persons out there have this demoniac tendency, godless demons, Prabhupada says. And therefore, our preaching of Krishna consciousness, following in the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj, is always hampered by many impediments. Okay, it seems like they captured the escaped cow. Yes, the one thing that I didn't understand, maybe someone can help me here, is Prabhupada says, because of their fault of being devotees, the American boys who have sacrificed everything for preaching Krishna consciousness are charged with being members of the CIA. I don't have any recollection of devotees being members of the CIA. Maybe Tara Prabhu can enlighten us. Can become a Brahmana only if born in a Brahman system of religion. So again, this conception is there that because Prabhupada has, set up this international society for Krishna consciousness and is awarding this Brahmanical thread to Westerners, Europeans, and Americans, that, they can be trained and by qualification become Brahmanas. The Hindus in general, or the caste Brahmanas, the seminal Brahmanas, they disagree with that. They say the only time you can become a Brahmin is if you're born in a family of Brahmanas. But, we see so many examples, even, in society today of, Brahmanas drinking, being big womanizers, just very corrupt individuals. And, so many examples are given there. In the Vedic literatures, Prabhupada gives so many examples, doesn't mean judge for that matter, a high court judge. His son is automatically becomes, judge. No, he has to go to school, he has to study, get the necessary qualifications and then become a judge. The same example is given of, a doctor. Doesn't mean that if you're a son or daughter of a doctor that you automatically can practice medicine. How many of us would like someone without a qualification just because they're the son of a doctor operating on us in an operating theater? No. Wow. So in the same way, this idea that one can become a Brahmana just because you're born in a Brahmin family is just complete taboo. So it looks like I lost you at some point. My computer froze. I apologize for that. I'm not sure at what point it happened. Any comments, questions on today's verse then? I just have bad karma.
I have a comment,
Please.
or maybe it's a question. Excuse me. Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, he describes 99% of the population being godless. And this is, it's interesting because if you look at some of these statistics, Pew Research, for example, did a study, and it's a hard thing to do because you're looking at, if you're talking about the world's population, trying to gather statistics from many different countries with different standards, and it's challenging, and how polls are worded differs, and people have different ideas about things. It's a difficult thing to try to actually track, but the best estimates are that roughly, Pew Research says 75.8% of the Earth's population are consider themselves to be adherents of a theistic system of religion. But depending upon how you define these things, that number can shift one way or the other by a few percentage points. But in contrast to this, Srila Prabhupada is saying 99% are godless. So evidently, there are, I would guess, many people who consider themselves to be theistic, but from Srila Prabhupada's perspective, they actually are not. And it's not hard to imagine, I guess. There are lots of people who will claim to be Christian or Jewish or Muslim, but don't actually follow.
Right.
They are essentially godless, but they'll claim to be this or that. So, in any case, I have no doubt that Srila Prabhupada is correct in his assertion, but evidently there are lots of people who feel that they, in fact, are following, or at least are believers of God somehow or other. There are those also who think that they are following a system of religion. They think that they believe in God, but they have some idea that is contrary. Amongst different religious faiths, it's easy to find adherents who believe that Christians, in many cases, will believe that the Muslims are not actually worshiping God, they're worshiping Satan. And the Muslims, from their perspective, everyone who's not doing what they're doing is an infidel. But from Srila Prabhupada's perspective, 99% are not even uh, actually worshiping God. Um, anyway, I thought that was interesting that there is, yeah, because the disparity in the numbers is huge. We're talking about huge numbers of people who evidently regard themselves as godly, but in fact they are not.
Right.
You have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, two things maybe. I was thinking that, yes, definitely Prabhupada is bringing this to our attention. That, if we didn't know that number, given by Srila Prabhupada, if we did the math, we would come up with, a more conservative number. And, we would maybe, if we do the math, this is the population of the world, because that's fixed. And, we say a few percent is probably, Christian and this, that. We'll come up with, a number. But Prabhupada is, bringing us, I guess it's like a reality check for us. And then also I was thinking at the same time, he's showing us that, this example of Prahlad Maharaj is not very far-fetched and, very unique in one sense. That, Prahlad Maharaj being born in a family of demons and, seems to be the only Vaishnav amongst them, So, one can think that, oh, this is, 1 in 10 trillion chance. But no, we see, we're also surrounded now. 99% of the population is godless. He also says godless civilization here. Godless demons, sorry, not just godless civilization, godless demons. So not only demoniac, he's categorizing them as godless demons. So I think, it's just a reality check that, this is going on. And that's why he is also, appealing that devotees, we have very difficult circumstances, but at the same time is encouraging us that just see, how Prahlad Maharaj was protected, by Lord Nishingadev. So in a similar way, we can also feel the protection. The one thing that I didn't understand was Prabhupada's mentioning here, the American boys who have sacrificed everything for preaching Krishna consciousness are charged with being members of the CIA. I don't remember hearing that before or coming across that anyway, that they were devotees who were working in the CIA. Or is that not what Prabhupada was mentioning? I couldn't understand that one.
That was a charge that devotees faced in India in the mid 70s. Before Krishna consciousness, before ISKCON was well established in India, people were very skeptical of the devotees, and the government, in particular, spread the propaganda that the ISKCON devotees were actually CIA.
Okay.
So it was one of the big challenges that we had to face in the early days. But that idea eventually was abandoned by the Indian populace because they could see clearly that the devotees were very sincere. But the popular rumors in the mid 70s were that our temples were actually CIA spying facilities, and that the gopurams on top of the temples were actually missile silos. So there's a lot of crazy ideas going around. Hey, I wanted to say that I really appreciate your rundown of the different types of diplomacy. That was very interesting to hear. Um, I'll be looking to see how you implement those in the course of administering Gita Nagari. I kid, but I appreciate that very thorough treatment of that topic with lots of examples. That was nice to hear. I think we're out of time, but
yes, I think something's happening. It hasn't happened yet, but something's happening. Any other comments, questions, devotees, realizations? Okay, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I didn't know that. First time I heard that.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Prabhu, for giving a very formal breakdown of diplomacy. I think based on your class, probably one could use it as a skeleton to give a week-long seminar.
All right.
Yeah. Examples you came with are very detailed, so thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, the Bhagavatam we understand is, full of every type of scenario that we could ever imagine. It's all there. The intrigue, the suspense, the adventure, the drama, the suspense, everything is there in the Bhagavatam. It's just so amazing that we can have live action. And this is why, we don't really need the movies, because everything is here in the Bhagavatam. No reason to watch TV. Okay, thank you, devotees. It's a cold day today. I go above freezing.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Yeah, the comment I want to give is about Srila Prabhupada saying that about 99, 90, is it 99%, he said?
99.
99% of people are godless.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can see this is just across the board, because Prabhupada is not the only one who has said it, because even biblically, when Jesus told his disciples in Matthew 23 from verse 1, he told the disciples, he said, look, these Pharisees, whatever they tell you to do it, but don't follow their example, because whatever they say, they don't apply it, they don't do it. They are hypocrites. They will tell you the scripture says this, and they will do a different thing. So even though all these people were claiming to be godly people, but their actions were actually ungodly, they were not following.
Mm.
And we can see it across the board, everywhere, every religious faith that you go in. We have people who claim to be following the path, but in actuality, they are doing a different thing.
Right.
So that is the nature of the world today. So many people are claiming to be following the principles of God.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But in the true sense, they are not.
Mm-hmm.
They say one thing, and their action says a different thing.
Right.
And similarly, when about the story of the prodigal son,
Mm-hmm.
when not the prodigal son, the good Samaritan, when Jesus was describing the story of the good Samaritan,
Mm-hmm.
and the disciples asked him, who then is our neighbor? And after the description that he put down, he laid down, you realize that even the priests, those who claimed they were priests, did not take care of the person who was dying at the roadside.
Mm-hmm.
Because they say, oh, I'm late, I'm going to church, I'm late.
Mm-hmm.
And they abandon it. So at the end of the day, he told the disciples that, who then is your neighbor? And they understood that not your claim, not you being claiming that you are a priest or going to church, that makes you a godly person. But being the practitioner, the true practitioner of the word of God, that makes you godly. So we see it all across the board. Everywhere you go, we see it there. So many, what do we call it? Pretenders. We talk big philosophy, but in actuality, in our personal lives, we don't display, we don't show any sign of following the principles of God. And so definitely there are so many people in the world who claim to be Christians, Muslims, Hindus, and whatever it is, but who are doing something which is really contrary to the scripture itself. Nobody is following.
Yeah.
So it actually, Prabhupada was right, because so many people are here, and we can see that about 90%, 90 or 99% claim they are religious, but in the true sense, they are not. Everybody is doing his own thing.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, actually, I mean, of course, Prabhupada even called people out during his time, the Christians during his time as well. I mean, he also said, there's the 10 commandments. So one of them is thou shalt not kill. So why are you killing? Such a simple, basic thing. It's, as it is. Thou shalt not kill, but still you are killing animals and en masse too. So yes, good point that, everybody is saying one thing but doing something else. And this is why, we have the concept, so, we have founder Acharya, but, Acharya is there, teach by example. There's no sense saying one thing and having a forked tongue. So yes, thank you for those points, Harishakra Prabhu. All right, thank you, devotees. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Let's see if I can set up the other laptop.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gaurara Srivasari Gaurabhakta Sham Krishna Shana Shana Vidyadushan Ramara Hare Shana Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Rama Krishna Hare Rama Rama Shiva, Shiva, Krishna to Shiva, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna to Shiva, Ram, Shiva, 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 Ram Ram, Ram, Shiva, Krishna, Shiva, Ram, Krishna, Ram, Ram, Shiva, Krishna, Shiva, Ram, Krishna, Hare, Hare, Ram, Ram, Krishna, Krishna, Ram, Jai Om Vishnu Padma Prabhupada Shota Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnu Padma Prabhupada Ashtutaya Shri Srimad Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Krishna, Gopi Gopinath, Shama Kund, Radha Kund, Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Maya Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Vittanani Dham Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo, all glories to the Samudra Bhadesh, all glories to the Samudra Bhadesh, glories to the Samudra Bhadesh, all glories to Shri Shri Hindrangola, all glories. Students of our spiritual master, from the revolution to see your revolution source. Our peace of those great on reverence. Our efforts to take off loving and particular suffering. No wish to have my confident purify my heart. Need to get so small. Dash and sings her species of fish. It's my God, the rules on the transcendental. He is my however that will companies and enemies, all human beings destroy. The various just against the always spiritual. It was the shield of the sea, and I used their all being one. We take shelter from the God. I'll try to figure out how we do it, because when you start doing the chimney from the mantra, then it's like hard to figure it out. I'm trying to do it for the past couple of days to transition. Yeah. I'm not really being fine. I don't know where my mind is. My heart is, but they all have to have it. What